Welcome back, Patriots, for another episode of the Bald Brad Show, where we break down all the major news that you need to know about heading into your work day or your work weekend. And we have a lot of news to cover. And unfortunately, there's a lot of tragic news over the weekend with what happened at Brown University, as well as was it a bar mitzvah in Australia, which is just honestly horrible. And I believe it was Australia where it took place, Australia or Austria, but I think it was Australia. So we have some updates on that right now, where a terror attack on Australian Hanukkah celebration leaves 15 dead, dozens wounded, which is just horrible. A terrorist attack on a Jewish Hanukkah celebration at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, deleted at least 15 and injured dozens, authorities say, marking the deadliest anti-Semitic attack since Hamas's October 7th massacre in Israel. The shooting occurred as roughly 2,000 people gathered to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah. Police say the attack deliberately targeted the Jewish community, involved at least two gunmen, and included improvised explosive devices found nearby. One attacker was killed and the other is in critical condition. I heard they were a father and son duo. The whole thing is on tape. I couldn't believe how many different angles of this, how many different qualities of footage there was. There's drone footage of the whole thing happening. I mean, it's crazy. All this footage. I mean, there is legitimately cell phone footage of when these guys got on this bridge, and it's just like 12 minutes long of them just recording this whole thing unfolding. It's just awful. And then there's footage of, people walking through the massacre on the beach. It's just awful. One of the alleged shooters in the deadly attack at Bondi Beach in Sydney was Naveed Akram, a man from the city's southwest, according to senior law enforcement officials. Video capture of the attack shows a long shootout between the terrorists and law enforcement, which there was. It's one of those things you kind of see in the old westerns where when something hit the, the brick, you get a little bit of the smoke hitting. So there's definitely a lot of rounds being thrown at this guy. One terrorist was taken down as he fired at the Jewish celebration by an unarmed civilian who could be seen in footage wrestling the gun away from the attacker. We'll get to that guy in one moment. People are calling that guy a hero. He goes in and he disarms the guy, which was pretty incredible. Witnesses described scenes of chaos and bodies on the sand, and it kind of reminded me of what that shootout looked like. You remember the Las Vegas shootout out of that hotel room? That's kind of what the video reminded me of. Obviously, I'm not going to play it. If you want to source that out, there's X, there's Twitter. You guys can go figure that out yourself, or go find that one yourself. It's not something obviously pleasant because there's headshot. There's people doing CPR, and if you've ever seen real CPR is very, very violent. It is not like what they show in the movies. So I've seen a lot of messed up stuff in my life. Obviously, it's terrible, just absolutely terrible. A wounded victim carried on surfboards due to lack of stretchers. The event was packed with hundreds of families. Yeah, I mean, there is just people running from one end of the beach to the other. There's also, there's already conspiracy theories coming out, by the way. One of them was there's an angle of a guy from behind the shooter, and the shooter is just seen is perfectly pointing at somebody. And or at least what alleges look to be pointing at directly at somebody. And you have these guys that weren't exactly running. I don't know if they thought it was fake or what, but they would stop and just look at the guy. This guy has it. I don't know if it was a red dot or it was, 2 times. I mean, there's definitely a scope on it, but what type of scope was it? I'm not sure. But they kind of just stop and look at the guy and then they would go off. I mean, they're older gentlemen. I don't know what the heck that was all about. So the conspiracy theorists is people were saying that they were just shooting blanks. Oh, this was all set up by the government, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's only going to get worse when AI comes out, you guys. The conspiracy theories, all the stuff people are coming out with, it's only going to get worse because people are, it's AI. Oh, this is all fake. Yeah, this never really happened. Even though it legitimately did. This is bonkers, dude. Marco Rubio and condemned the vile terrorist attack on civilians, condemning anti-Semitism. The United States strongly condemns the terrorist attack in Australia targeting a Jewish celebration. Anti-Semitism has no place in the world. Our prayers are with the victims of the horrific attack in the Jewish community and the people of Australia. Now let's get to the hero. Law enforcement's the hero too. So let me get to that one for all of you. Where'd it go? Here we go. So they're starting a fundraising for this guy that disarmed him. And I'll play a video of that in a moment. But a GoFundMe for a man who fought back against the Bondi Beach shooters have raised over $250,000 already. Wow. In a matter of hours. The hero of Bondi Beach, identified as 43-year-old Ahmed Al-Ahmed, is hospitalized with 2 gunshot wounds. Really? One on the hand and the other on his arm. I don't know if he was shot in this altercation or what happened here. I thought he didn't get injured. Oh, man. Ahmad, a fruit shop owner and father of 2, ambushed one of the attackers, disarmed the shooter, and held him at gunpoint after witnessing the extraordinary actions of the hero who helped disarm one of the attackers during the Bondi tragedy, an act that prevented the loss of countless lives. Absolutely. Yeah, this guy saved a ton of people, by the way. We felt compelled to act, says a GoFundMe post created by Car Hub Australia, a car club. Good for them. Good for them. I'm going to keep that on the screen just really quick. Matter of fact, hold on a second. I'm going to post this in the chat for all of you. Whoa. Okay. Hello. They have raised $1.4 million already. So I'm going to send this to you guys. It might be too long. I'm going to put this in the chat for everybody. If they want to go over and donate, I'm going to get the video going for all of you while you guys, if you want to head over that GoFundMe site. 1.4 million has been raised. Holy smokes, dude. That's incredible. Good for him. Because when you see what this guy does, man, this ain't the balls you have to do this. And I get goosebumps talking about it. I'm going to show you the footage here. Let me see if I can gather it. Hopefully they didn't take it down. That's him. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Okay, well, for those on audio, the shooter is looking left. He's using a tree as cover, and he's literally right next to a parking lot, like feet from a parking lot. So there's cars parked right up behind him. And the hero is behind a car, and he's going to go up behind the guy and try to tackle him and remove the gun.
Oh! Oh mon gros! Oh!
Incredible, man.
Il est trop con, le mec qui a l'arme.
That's smart of him to put his hand up, because now he's holding the rifle. That guy's walking away. So you might not know, dude, and you're just getting shot from all directions. That is a heroic move. What was confusing to me is the guy walks away, right? And I believe this is the father.
Le mec est hyper courageux. Oh.
So he walks away, and I think he actually rejoins his son on the bridge, and they start firing at people even more. So this is the guy right here. Yeah, I believe this is the guy in the hospital. That's at least what people are posting. This one, take with a grain of salt. I thought the guy was older than this guy, but allegedly this is him. Or at least this is what people are saying. But I thought he was older than this. Man, shout out to that guy for putting him down. That's impressive. It is him. So here's another photo. Looks like he's getting the acknowledgement he deserves, and it's just so sad that so many people were deleted, and at least we're giving praise to the hero rather than these attackers, which the media always loves to do. So let's see what else we got here really quick. Yeah, you can see the scope that he has. It's not much, but now Australia's coming out with stricter gun laws. They already have the strictest, like some of the strictest gun laws in the world. This was him after it happened. I don't know what I'm allowed to show, but Prime Minister here says the true threat is right-wing extremist groups after Islamic terrorist attack. No way. Here we go with this crap again.
We take ASIO's advice very seriously. We work closely with them. We receive regular updates as well. The Director General of ASIO has warned about a range of threats, be it anti-Semitism, the rise of right-wing extremist groups as well. And we continue to work closely with our security agencies.
Wow. And anywhere you could plug right-wing extremism, right? The left will absolutely do it. Oh, they will. They'll make an effort to do it. Pro-Hamas crowd in Manchester celebrating the Bondi Hanukkah massacre. Those are monsters. Maybe. I don't know. So here's I could show this. Here's the CNN clip of just this horror of a shooting. It's god awful, man. It really is. I know I'm repeating myself. What more can you say? I mean, what words can you use to describe how awful this is?
We don't want to speculate on what the factors are that have contributed to this awful tragedy that seems to be of a huge scale. You know, the fact that we know that 10 people have lost their lives today is utterly horrendous. And, you know, my heart breaks for those people and their families and for the communities affected across the world. I think it's important to note that the escalation of this narrative of who we're against and how much we want to divide each other and how much we want to attack each other, that is really at the core of a lot of the problems that we have in the country at the moment. And I firmly believe that people are good and that given the opportunity, they will look out for each other. And I just want to say that as much as possible, we should try and detoxify the way that we think of people who aren't like us, because our diversity in this country is our strength. And I firmly am on the side of working together and celebrating our difference, because, you know, I was a community organizer a long time ago, and the strongest campaigns that we ever worked on were about bringing people of different faiths and different worldviews and different backgrounds together to find what we had in common. And at times like this, it makes me think of, you know, what happened with Jo Cox and her speech and that mantra that she had about more in common. We have more in common than that divides us. And that is the most true statement we can think of at very difficult, testing and anxiety-inducing times. And, you know, I wish the best for everybody watching who is feeling anxious, and I hope we do get some formal. So
you guys are mentioning, isn't Australia like gun free? They have very strict gun laws, extremely strict, and they're trying to become even stricter. So a lot of people are posting about the is that the Prime Minister of Australia talking about right wing extremism. It's just as of right now, that does seem absurd. And I don't really have much for you guys in the way of their laws. I know that he came out and was talking about doing more gun reform or whatever. Somebody in the chat mentioned it, that, you know, there's not going to be immigration reform. Now, there's too early to tell in terms of, you know, if that was immigrants or what, you don't know, those people could have been born and raised there. So authorities in Australia have identified the suspects. Again, it was a 24-year-old man and his 24-year-old son. So 50-year-old man and his 24-year-old son. Officials gave an update on Sunday evening, late last night. And although they did not name the suspects, they revealed that the father had been killed at the scene of the shooting, and the son remained in the hospital with critical injuries. Based on the medical condition, it is likely that this person may face criminal charges, which is, I believe he got shot multiple times, because I saw the footage itself of him on the bridge, and it looked like he took at least two. Lanyon also warned the public against retaliation, saying this is a time for calm. Retribution or acts against any part of any community will not be accepted. Authorities have labeled the attack and the gathering of hundreds of Jews who are gathered to celebrate the night of Hanukkah an act of terrorism and anti-Semitism. So we'll get more, obviously, information as time goes on. I guess the commissioner noted the older of the two suspects was, here you go. This is the part that you guys were asking about. Let me post it for all of you. Let's go to the big screen here. It was noted that the suspects legally were allowed to have and possess firearms. despite Australia's strict firearm regulations, because he was a member of a gun club and had obtained a recreational hunting license. He had legal licenses for 6 firearms, and 6 firearms were all that were recovered from his property and from the scene of the shooting. So it sounds like those were the hunting rifles, which the rifle he was using, it looked bolt action. I looked at some grainy footage, so don't hold me to that one. But I mean, again, I'm a huge Second Amendment advocate. I know we're talking about Australia here, but just because it's bolt action doesn't mean anything. You could shoot those pretty quickly, as you saw. That's why it's always silly that you have the Democrat Party always pushing, well, we need to restrict everything to semi-automatic firearms. Everything's pretty much already semi-automatic, by the way. You doing bolt action is saving you a fraction of a second, and they go, every second counts. Yes, it does, but as you saw, this stuff lasts minutes on end, 11, 12, 15 minutes or more. Who knows how long these massacres can go on for? And a bunch of people, unfortunately, die. It doesn't matter if you do bolt action or you have a magazine hooked up and it just changes it. They're all semi-automatic. It's they think that things change in terms of like velocity. Not really, not all that much. It says here, this is the part that I was mentioning. It means introducing a bill to Parliament. Here we go. They're already pushing it. So lawmakers in Australia have already begun to talk about tightening gun regulations even further in the wake of the shooting. The guy did everything legally, by the way. This horrific individual, these evil scumbags, did everything actually by law. Meaning the question would be, what sort of implementation in a bill could you do that would limit something like this from taking place, this horrific event? It means introducing a bill to Parliament to really be blunt here, make it more difficult to get these horrifying weapons that have no practical use in our community. If you're a farmer, if you're not involved in agriculture, why do you need these massive weapons that put the public in danger and make life dangerous and difficult for New South Wales police? Remember, this is a different country. They ain't talking about America here. Now, if you go back to it, the guy had it for hunting. So again, if you're not a farmer or you're not involved in agriculture, they're implying that you could have a firearm. So what are you going to do then when a farmer or somebody in agriculture does the exact same thing? What are you going to do then? Say, oh, well, they don't need them anymore or any of these things? That's what I mean is that how do you stop these tragedies? One, I don't know, maybe start vetting people. That's just a guess. I know nothing about these two individuals because nothing as much has come out. You vet people coming in your country. You have way better screening procedures, even with the vetting that's taking place. These red flag laws don't work, really. And if they do, you need to take them more seriously. But there's not much you can do to stop this. And if people are experiencing some mental decline, I say we open up the insane asylums again, man. Or you start packing yourself, and when something like this pops off, you put a few double tap rounds into the guy. Do you know what I mean? Easier said than done when you're in a situation like that. Minns also vowed to make it clear to the citizens that the government and the police would protect them, saying we need to send a clear message to the people of this state. The New South Wales police are there to protect them, to keep them safe, and they got every right to celebrate their faith. The names of those who were murdered at the Hanukkah celebration have not yet been released. It's just awful. The whole thing is awful. So you have that taking place, but then at Brown University, there was another attack, and it looks like person of interest released as police intensify manhunt for Brown. Wow, so that's news. That is breaking. A person of interest detained over the shooting at Brown University that left 2 dead and 9 injured has been released as law enforcement continues to hunt for the gunman. The guy got out? Whoa. That announcement came one day after a gunman wearing all black stormed an engineering building and opened fire on a group of students studying for finals. Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Renona said that evidence pointed law enforcement in a different direction. So now you had that mass shooting that took place in Australia. Now we have this mass shooting that took place at Brown University over the weekend as well. Says here, quote, there was and is some degree of evidence that pointed to this individual, but that evidence needed to be corroborated and confirmed, he said at the press conference on Sunday. That evidence now points in a different direction. So what that means is that this person of interest needs to be and should be released. Whoa. He added that it was unfortunate and that specific information about the person of interest had been leaked to the media. Cool. I think what is really unfortunate is that person's name was leaked to the public. I saw photos of this individual online, which if this guy did nothing wrong, that is terrible, because remember, you're always innocent until proven guilty. There's a reason for that. And the media blast this kid. I mean, there could be some major lawsuits here. I mean, this kid, if he didn't do anything, could be making a lot of buku bucks, because that's a big mistake, man. To be labeled as a mass shooter, dude, is whoa. It's hard to put that back in the bottle. Okay, so we're going to proceed very carefully here, he said. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Look at that quote, you guys. It's hard to put that back in the bottle. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. There is too much at stake for the victims of this horrific crime and their families to take chances with respect to this investigation. Jeez. So I guess this is the person of interest. Once again, with the grainy... Dude, we're in 2025, man. And we're still getting this potato video. So I guess it's the individual. And it makes you wonder what was released versus what they actually have, if this is really 4K. But that was it. I mean, you got the backpack. Almost looks like a nursing student. At the same press conference, Mayor Brett Smiley said that they saw the investigation. Wow. They said that the investigation, it's morning, folks. Okay, I didn't get a lot of good sleepy. Investigation was ongoing, but they did not believe there was any ongoing threat to the community. Come here, guys. You don't think there's an ongoing threat to the community when you're like, hey, we're still looking for the guy. Yeah, he's out there somewhere. Don't worry, though. There's no ongoing threat. We got to figure it out. Serious? These people are idiots. It's all right, folks. We got it under control. Oh, good. You got the guy. Everyone's all happy, right? Because now it's safe. Well, let's not lead to some conclusions here. The guy we thought was the guy, turns out wasn't. So you don't have the guy? Well, don't worry. Don't worry. There's no ongoing threat to the community anymore. But where's the guy at? We're looking for him. Oh, gotcha. Okay. No, that makes sense. Oh, goody. It's so similar how you have J.B. Pritzker over there in Illinois releasing almost 1,800 convicted criminal illegal aliens to your streets. We're all about safety. We're all about safety. Yeah, sure you are. Sure you are, bud. Yeah, safety and responsibility. It's always about safety, but yeah, we're going to do the least safest thing for you. It's always that case. What a bunch of idiots. What a bunch of idiots. All right, so obviously, as you know, the media is going to spin this sucker. Let me get this over here for all of you. And there's a pretty good spin cycle that's happening right now. So I'm going to show you a few clips, probably towards the end as I break down my show notes here. But if you ever want to understand how broken our political... There you guys go. Our political discourse has become, all you have to do is watch what happens after these terrible tragedies had unfolded that we covered. So I'm not talking about the tragedy itself, but the response of the tragedy. Because within hours of the two horrific shootings, the one in Australia at Bondi Beach and this other one at Brown University, you have Democrats and the corporate media managing to do something almost impressive, I would say, in its cynicism. Do you want to know who they blamed? And you would imagine that, I might have posted the individual on the screen for you of who they're blaming. I'm not kidding. Yes, they are blaming Donald Trump for this. not just for violence in America, they are blaming Donald Trump. And this is real, you guys. Please understand, I am not making this up. They are blaming him for violence worldwide. I am laughing not at the horrific shooting. I'm laughing at how absurd the media has gotten and how silly they're acting. So let's start with the facts. And that's the part that usually gets lost. We already covered the Brown University where a masked gunman walks into a school, the engineering building, and starts shooting up the place where 2 people were killed and several others were wounded. Now, kudos to the authorities in that situation for going in fast. Now, they got the person of interest, but seems like that person was let go. And then you have the Bondi Beach massacre that took place. Now, Australia is supposed to be the left's kind of golden example of gun control laws and the gun control narrative. Well, that kind of fell apart because Australia, if you recall, had the massive gun confiscations. They also have severe ownership restrictions and sweeping bans on firearms. And yet, as you saw, a mass shooting still occurred. Because for some reason, the left can't get it through their thick skull that when somebody wants to do something horrific and evil, they're going to go out and do something horrific and evil. It doesn't matter if it's them using knives like we see in the UK all the time, or using explosive devices that they made out of freaking some cereal boxes. It doesn't matter. They're going to do something evil. And by the way, you don't even need an actual tool to do it. You have your hands. But not only that, but in the Bondi Beach, the situation only paused briefly because, as you saw, a civilian physically charged the shooter and disarmed him and held him at gunpoint. That's not a gun control success story for the left, by the way. That's a story about courage in the absence of immediate force. Because instead of grappling with that reality, Democrats had to pivot, and they pivoted fast. And enter the media spin room here. And I got clips to show you, folks. Okay. Let's scroll down just a little bit. We're looking at MSNDNC. And they be fair, they rebranded as MSN Now. Because apparently a new name just fixes their credibility. And Ilhan Omar went on air. And she called the shootings another bad day for America.
We are following these shootings in Australia and in Rhode Island. There was a shooting in your district not that long ago, a mass shooting. This is yet another bad day for America.
Yeah, I mean, we are still recovering from the shooting at Annunciation Church. It is a tragedy that this has become a normal occurrence. Not just in the United States, but now seeing it in Australia, who's worked really hard to create gun prevention laws to prevent the kind of tragedy that took place today.
Thank you for your time this morning.
So if you noticed, she didn't mention Jewish victims. She didn't mention anti-Semitism. She didn't mention that Australia has the laws that she wants here in America. No, instead, she framed the violence as proof that America needs more restrictions. I don't, you know what? Let me actually just pull up the actual definition of the word infringe. Okay. What does infringe mean? Act so as to limit or undermine something, to mean encroach on. That's the exact definition, by the way. I'm going to say that again, because you do not have the right to infringe on my Second Amendment rights. Act so as to limit or undermine something. So you do not have the right to do that with my Second Amendment firearms, but yet you still do it. And they get away with this crap. Now, it doesn't stop there. Oh, no. You have Chris Murphy, who goes all in on this. And if you don't know who Chris Murphy is, it's Senator Chris Murphy. Let me scroll down here for all of you. Where he goes on CNN. Let me pause this real quick. Let me get this framed up for all of you. I apologize. Thank you for your patience. Where he goes on CNN State of the Union. And Murphy made one of the most reckless claims we've probably heard in a while, which is astonishing because we get a lot of reckless claims coming from the Democrat Party that we post here on the show. And he said on national television that President Trump has been engaged in, quote, a deliberate campaign to increase violence.
Has some pretty strict gun laws. They have universal background checks, red flag laws, waiting periods to purchase a gun. So this is about, and we've talked about this, much more than gun violence. It is gun violence, but the laws could be stronger, but they're stronger than other places in Rhode Island.
Well, but the laws do make a difference. I mean, if you look at states like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, California that have stronger laws, we have gun violence rates, murder rates, mass shooting rates that are 2 to 3 to 4 times lower than states that have loose gun laws. And many of the weapons that are used in our states for gun crimes come to our states from those states that have an ability for criminals and people with serious mental illness to buy weapons. So what we know is that stronger laws do work. And since we passed that bill in 2022, the first bill in 30 years that strengthens the nation's gun laws, gun violence rates and mass shooting rates have come down in this country. But this is not shocking because over the last year, President Trump has been engaged in a dizzying campaign to increase violence in this country. He is restoring gun rights to felons and people who have lost their ability to buy guns. He eliminated the White House Office of Gun Violence Protection, and he has stopped funding mental health grants and community anti-gun violence grants that Republicans and Democrats supported in that 2022 bill. So he has been engaged in a pretty deliberate campaign to try to make violence more likely in this country. And I think you're unfortunately going to see the results of that on the streets of America.
That's a pretty big statement.
Yes,
he's
it
in
is.
a campaign to make violence more likely.
Of course. I mean, he's knowingly restoring gun rights to dangerous people. He is cutting off grants that have bipartisan support to try to interrupt violence in our cities or to try to get necessary mental health resources to families and children in need. The evidence tells you that when you stop funding mental health, when you stop funding community anti-gun violence programs, when you give gun rights back to dangerous people, you are going to have an increase in violence that is knowable and that is foreseeable.
Folks, when Dana Bash questions you of he wants to campaign on making things more violent, you should probably rethink your whole narrative that you're pushing because it's probably so preposterous that even CNN is starting to question it live on air. He's going to talk about Donald Trump doing all these things and making things more violent and less safe. Folks, it's the Democrat Party that's pushing no cash bail. That's already a thing. J.B. Pritzker just released 1,800 convicted criminal illegal aliens back into the area. I mean, they're just releasing people left and right. The Democrats are the ones that got rid of the 3 strikes law. That's why you have these people with like 60 to 70 priors, and then they go light up an individual or they start stabbing people or shooting people. That's why. What do you mean it's Donald Trump's fault? You guys are the ones that are allowing all this stuff to happen. There's a reason why people don't pull this crap in hardcore conservative areas like you have in Orange County, California. People don't pull this type of stunts down here. They pull it in LA County because they know they can get away with it. People get arrested down here and get thrown in the brig for a while. Don't give me this crap that he's pushing it. So according to Murphy, Trump is restoring due process to gun rights, and he calls it encouraging violence. So when you encourage the rights for American citizens to uphold their Second Amendment right to own a firearm, to protect their family, their property, and, well, their well-being, that's all of a sudden encouraging violence. Gotcha. It's amazing that, I know a lot of Second Amendment and firearm owners. I know a lot of them because I'm a conservative and we believe in our rights. Weird, because none of them have actually committed any sort of violence before. Weird. He also was stating, right, that Trump was eliminating a White House office and is encouraging violence. Really? Trump is reevaluating mental health funding priorities, is encouraging violence. Isn't what everybody's been talking about, us normies having to deal with all these psychos going out and committing massive crimes And we're saying, why are we having to put up with this crap? Open up the insane asylums again, please. Now, what Murphy didn't tell you was obviously the reality. He wanted to play make-believe, which is what that party, for some ungodly reason, continues to love to do, right? They love shapeshifters. The, ABL, Anthony Brian Logan, who we think is great here on the show, calls them transformers. They believe a man can become a woman can become a man. It's insane what these people believe in. So what he wasn't willing to tell you was Murphy was referring to a Justice Department rule proposed in July. The reality is it does not give guns to violent criminals. He lied to all of you. Typical. I know, you're not shocked. It allows some people with past convictions to apply for rights restoration only after evaluation, only if they pose no ongoing risk. In other words, it's called due process. The same due process that they want, not the exact same due process, but the idea of due process they keep shouting for illegal aliens. Due process! You're rounding up Americans! Did you know a lot of these Democrats are going out protesting, because I've been watching these on the street interviews, saying that these illegal immigrants and American citizens are being apprehended and sent off into Africa to die of starvation? Like, we don't know where they went. Okay, well, who are they? Well, I don't know. You never know who they are. If it's such a massive issue, shouldn't you be able to give me one name? Like just one? Some Democrats claim to support until it applies to constitutional rights they dislike. Then all of a sudden they want to turn a blind eye to all of it. I mean, even as you saw, CNN was uncomfortable. I mean, she said, this is a pretty big statement. You're saying the president is in a campaign to make violence more likely. I mean, you should have at least questioned yourself at that moment in time, right? You should at least been like, and then kind of backtracked it slowly. But he just doubles down on this with no evidence, no causation, just ideological certainty. I mean, it's freaking insane, dude. These people are nuts. Then, we're not done with the media spin cycle yet. Then there is this whole moralizing phrase that they like to push here, where you have Senator Raphael Warnock goes on Meet the Press here, and he leaned into moral language. You're going to hear things like America is broken, legislators haven't done enough, violence is proof of moral failure, stuff like that. So here we go.
Morning, Senator. I do want to start right there with that mass shooting on Brown University claimed the life of 2 students. Senator, what is your message to the Brown University community, the broader community this morning?
It is a somber morning indeed. And as I make my way to my own pulpit this morning, I'm going to say a special prayer for Brown University and for our nation. And I can tell you that as a...
By the way, respect for him saying that. I like that. I think power of prayer is effective. And a lot of people I found don't really know what the purpose of prayer is. Folks, the purpose of prayer after an event has occurred, or even during an event, isn't necessarily to stop the event itself. It is if you're praying during a horrific event taking place. But you're praying that God can send down his angels and do his work here on earth, but also guide those that have unfortunately perished into the promised land, and that you can forgive their sins and remember their sins no more. You're praying on behalf of those that are injured as well, that they can have a speedy recovery, that the angels, the heavens can come down and help them, that the nursing staff, the doctor staff, all of that can be given wisdom from the heavens to hopefully heal those people and make the correct decisions for them so that they can ultimately recover. I mean, there's so much that goes into prayer that people leave out. They just think that prayer is to stop these horrific things from taking place. Of course, that's always already built into it, but it's also really heavily involving those that something horrific has happened or somebody perished. Those are the people that need a lot of prayer as well, because now they're passing on, and that judgment does take place depending on your faith, and your heart is weighed. Your heart is weighed on the knowledge, faith, and actions that you incurred that were during your life here on earth, and that you hope, and the scriptures does talk about it. That's why I said that God will remember your sins no more. That's the hope.
Pastor who has presided over many funerals, I don't think that there's any pain deeper than when nature is violently reversed, and rather than children burying their parents, the parent has to bear the child. And so we pray prayers for these families, but we have to pray not only with our lips but with our action. Any nation that tolerates this kind of violence year after year, decade after decade, in random places on our college and school campuses without doing all that we can to stop it, is broken and in need of moral repair.
Notice, just want you to notice something. No mention of criminal behavior, no mention of mental health, no mention of radicalization, no mention of cultural breakdown, or the fact that restrictive gun laws don't actually stop evil intent. It's just policy sermons. That's all it is. There's no substance. There's no answer here. And the pattern is the point. Tragedy as a tool. This isn't about safety. This is about political leverage. And every tragedy becomes a press hit. A policy demand. A Trump is a bad guy. Trump indictment by implication is what's going on here. It's all Trump's fault. For things that take place that Trump had no involvement in, that's across the oceans, over there in Australia, they're going to blame Donald Trump. Brown University, it's Donald Trump's fault. You not making your bills paid on time, it's Donald Trump's fault. You stub your toe on the staircase in the middle of the night, it's Donald Trump's fault. Everything is Donald Trump's fault. When violence happens in the U.S., it's Trump's fault. When violence happens abroad, it's Trump's fault. When gun laws fail everywhere else, they ignored it, it's Donald Trump's fault. The conclusion is always pre-written. Guess whose fault it is? Donald Trump's fault. Trump derangement syndrome is being studied right now. I'm hearing from stuff I've read, I'm hearing that it is a legitimate disorder, man. And it's tough to say it's not, because these people love to blame this guy for anything that's even remotely negative. And sometimes even good things they blame him for. What are those good things? Gee, I don't know. How about wrangling up illegal immigrants that are criminals and getting them out of this country? People that are murderers, terrorists, getting out of this country. That's a good thing. And they're still going after him for it. Oh, he's terrible. When it's all said and done, they don't want solutions. They don't. Because blaming somebody or people is just easier than the truth. Because there's the uncomfortable reality of it all. If Democrats actually believe gun control stopped violence, they'd be explaining Australia right now. But they're not. If they actually cared about Jewish victims, they'd be talking about anti-Semitism. But they're not. If they actually wanted solutions, they'd talk about enforcement, mental health, and criminal accountability, not allowing somebody with 72 priors to roam free on the streets to commit another heinous crime against another American citizen that's following the law. They don't want any of this. They want a villain. And who's that villain? It's Donald Trump. It's always Donald Trump. And Trump is always convenient for them. So no matter where the violence occurs, a campus, a city, a freaking continent, the spin machine, as you saw, just continues to turn. It's the same talking points. It's the same accusations. It's the same refusal to deal with reality. It's not leadership. I would say it's exploitation in my opinion, but you might have a different opinion. And Americans, quite frankly, in my opinion, are getting tired of it. Frustrating as heck to take a horrific tragedy less than 24 hours later, always spinning it, always to make it seem like it's something it's not. So the one other thing you guys are talking about is the Hollywood director, Rob Reiner. This broke last night, and I was kind of in shock because it's kind of in my neighborhood here. And you might be going, what's going on with Rob Reiner? Rob Reiner, and let me make sure I get this on the screen for all of you. There we go. Rob Reiner and wife found dead in apparent homicide. And this was being leaked by TMZ. Just really, really awful. And it's kind of one of those stories that hits differently. And it's not political at first glance, at least as of right now. But because of kind of who was involved in this and what the aftermath tells us about the culture we live in. So you have Hollywood director Rob Reiner here, who is one of the most influential directors in, I would say, the last half century, probably. And his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, they were both found dead in their Los Angeles home. I believe it was last night or yesterday. And authorities are calling it an apparent homicide. And the entertainment press rushed to celebrate Rain's career, there's a deeper, darker story that's unfolding with all of this. And it really gets discussed honestly. So what we know so far, so according to the Los Angeles Police Department, officers were called to Reiner's Brentwood home Sunday afternoon at approximately 3:30 p.m. yesterday. The Los Angeles Fire Department discovered this: one deceased male, one deceased female. Their ages matched Rob Reiner, 78, and then Michelle Reiner, 68. The LAPD confirmed the case is being handled by the Robbery Homicide Division. That kind of tells you a little bit of something, which tells you immediately that it's not being treated as an accident or natural causes. No suspects were initially named, no motive announced, just one chilling phrase: apparent homicide. That's the phrase that's being utilized. Now, there are disturbing details that emerged. So as you imagine, with these high profile cases, more details began kind of leaking through unofficial channels. And one of those is TMZ. And they reported that both victims had lacerations consistent with stab wounds. Later reporting escalated further. Sources told TMZ that the couple allegedly had their throats slit by a family member. Whoa. And that's not law enforcement confirmation, mind you, but it's significant enough that major outlets began following up. Usually TMZ gets this stuff right. How they have all these connections, I don't know, but have they gotten things wrong before? Absolutely. But they get things way more right than they ever get wrong. There's also another disturbing development, which was the family connection. People magazine reported Sunday evening, citing multiple unnamed sources, that the suspected killer is the couple's 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner. According to those sources, Nick had struggled with addiction for years. The killing allegedly occurred inside the family home, and investigators are examining the role substance abuse may have played. People are showing an image of a family photo, and people are saying, what do you notice? And in the photo, the son, Nick, was the one out of everybody that was just not smiling. I don't take that as evidence of like, oh, it was the guy, it was the kid, it was the son. Everybody's had a bad photo of them, or you kind of get caught. You know, when somebody's taking a bunch of photos and you kind of get caught in the middle of smiling and not smiling, whatever. I don't read too far into those types of things. Maybe there's something behind it. I don't have enough evidence. So that's what's being said right now, is it's allegedly maybe the son. Take that with a grain of salt. Nobody knows. You don't want to turn that into blaming somebody for the deletion of their parents is god awful. I mean, if you never did anything, put yourself in that situation. If you never did anything, and just because of your past history of maybe drug abuse or whatever it is, and you're being blamed as you're trying to deal with the grieving situation of your parents, and it sounds like they were murdered, that's awful. You're already trying to deal with something, and then people are claiming that you're the one that did it. I couldn't imagine. That has to be terrible. So take it with a grain of salt. There is Rob Reiner's public legacy, where he wasn't just some sort of another typical Hollywood director. He was, some are claiming, Hollywood royalty. Son of legendary comedian Carl Reiner, Rob built an extraordinary career, and he's directed some pretty impressive film. He's actor on All in the Family as Meathead, director of classics like The Princess Bride, Stand By Me, A Few Good Men, You Can't Handle the Truth, When Harry Met Sally. This is Spinal Tap. His films did shape generations, not just shaping generations for culture, but also shaping generations for filmmakers themselves. The guy has done some pretty extraordinary films. But Reiner also became something else over the last 2 decades. He was a loud political activist, and he has every right. This is not me beating him up. I'm not trying to beat up somebody that had something obviously very horrific happen to them. So please understand that. I'm just presenting the news as detailed out in the article for all of us. But he was a political activist. He has every right to say whatever stuff he wants, whether it's nonsense or not nonsense. If he was right or left, doesn't matter to me. He has every right to do it. Doesn't mean somebody should be deleted for their political views. Ever. You could say some pretty wild things. I mean, there's full-blown socialists out there that disagree. There's full-blown communists. They have every right to spew it. I don't agree with that. I think it's terrible, but they have every right to do it. I don't think you should get to go harm them for that. That's crazy. There is the silence from Hollywood, and it's selective conversations. So here's where the story gets kind of, I'm going to say, uncomfortable. Hollywood is very quickly to talk about mental health, addiction, gun violence, crime narratives that fit political talking points. But when the tragedy strikes inside the elites, progressive households, like we have here, the tone just completely changes. Suddenly, addiction becomes a private struggle. Violence becomes complex. Accountability completely disappears. Cultural conversations stop. This isn't about blaming the victims. It's about recognizing that there's a double standard is the point that I'm trying to bring up here. And I know all of you know that. There's addiction and then there's reality. And this is the part that for some reason, especially in Hollywood, but also in progressive circles and the Democrat Party as a whole, this is the part that they don't want to face. Addiction is devastating, but it's also often enabled, excused, and sanitized, especially when it comes within wealthy circles like we have here. When addiction leads to violence in poor communities, the conversation is brutal. Crime problem, cultural problem, broken homes, broken families. But when it happens in Hollywood, it's somehow tragic, unthinkable. Nobody could have saw this coming. This is crazy. Whoa, didn't believe it. Just saw the guy last week flipping burgers in his backyard. But the thing is that families do see it coming. That's the thing. Because they're the ones that live with all of this. Just an interesting kind of point that I wanted to make. The media narrative on this is what's being emphasized and what's not being emphasized. So notice what coverage is focusing on is obviously Reiner's film. And I'm not saying they shouldn't cover all this stuff. That's not what I'm saying. You'll see what I'm saying in a moment. They're covering Reiner's films, deserves all of that. His political activism, sure. His famous father, rightfully so. His first marriage to Penny Marshall. But what's being minimized is the family dysfunction, the addiction consequences, years-long warning signs, allegedly, the role of enabling environments. And please understand, it's not a conspiracy theory. This is just many articles that's been put together to formulate these show notes, but also to discuss what the media is talking about, and rightfully so, should be talking about those things. He had a legacy. They should be talking about his political activism. And I would say even in a positive light, the guy was always respectful. He most recently was talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination and said how terrible that was. I'm not beating him up for his political opinions. None of this is about political opinions. This is a broader story here of, for some reason, when it's Hollywood, we have to treat it differently than say it's something of an inner city or I just don't understand the narrative personally. It's a tragedy without a slogan is what it is. And there's no talking points what I'm trying to talk to you all about. The story doesn't come with some sort of like easy hashtag or like some easy headline, like a Chiron or like a YouTube thumbnail or whatever. There's no policy agenda to push with this. There's no villain the media prefers. There's no like ideological component to blame in all this. So instead of conversation, the conversation gets silenced, or there's just silence. Instead of honesty, we get memorization. This would be one of those times, I would say, after everything gets sorted out, to then talk about with evidence and proof, if it was addiction, if it was family problems or whatever, then we could talk about those things because you learn from them. It's not to bring down the Reiner family. It's not to discredit his legacy or anything of the sort. I think you could look on past tragedy to hopefully remedy future tragedy so that doesn't, those things don't take place in the future and you can learn from them. I mean, isn't that life itself, though, is to not make the same mistakes that somebody else made or some family made? Doesn't matter what it is, because quite frankly, you don't have enough time in your life to make every mistake that everybody made. There's not enough time for that. So that's why we have to look at what people did, unfortunately, in the past, tragedy, not tragedy, and learn from them. 2 people are dead. I mean, usually something like this, a family's destroyed. And once again, reality proves something uncomfortable. Fame doesn't insulate you. Money doesn't fix addiction. Sometimes it does. Ideology doesn't stop violence, and ignoring problems doesn't make them disappear. And again, it's not about Rob's politics whatsoever. It's about the culture that pretends tragedy only comes from other people. And the truth is harsher. Violence doesn't discriminate. Addiction doesn't respect status, and denial doesn't protect anybody. And this case is still unfolding, but the lesson I think is already clear. And it's very sad with what happened. Again, I'm not one to, I always say, like, I spent 4 years beating up on Joe Biden, but I never wished any ill will upon him or his family, ever. As a matter of fact, I even encourage people to pray for Joe Biden, to pray for the other side, because I do believe that the power of prayer is effective. I think we should be praying for the progressives, that God can give them, the heavens can give them wisdom to sort out whatever issues they're having mentally, cognitively, to where they think that the right is these evil people or Trump is evil or whatever. I pray for those types of things. I pray for people to be safe. And but I'm also a normie. I mean, I'm not totally normal. I'm a little bit of an idiot. I told you that before, but I just, there's just so many psychos out there, man. And I feel like it's getting, I think it's getting crazier and crazier. And I think it will only get crazier and crazier. That's why I don't go out in the really crowded areas all too much. But we have a lot of people watching today. That's pretty crazy. We got almost 200 people watching the show right now, which is awesome. All right, let's do, I have a little bit more time. Let's do something else. Let's see kind of what's breaking here really quick for all of you. We'll kind of extend it. Next week, we're going to start going to, I think, probably 2-hour long podcasts in the morning, by the way. So it looks like Gavin Newsom suffers $1 billion loss so they can flee California. I guess Valero suffers $1 billion loss so they could flee California by 2026. Wow, no way. Hold on, we're gonna look at this.
That Valero just wrote off $1.1 billion. That is the cost they are taking to walk away from California.
Wow.
Rather than keep operating their Benicia refinery past April 2.
I have a great video that I posted like 2 weeks ago on the refineries closing in California, how we went from like 42, 43 refineries in the 80s down to 5. We're pretty much going to be down to 5 starting next year. This is nuts. And I talked about it. So gas prices aren't going to double overnight, but if something were to happen, this state is in a very tough situation. You know why they did all this? Because they're pushing climate change, which is hilarious, because all they're doing is that they're importing like 70% of their oil and energy from like China and India and stuff like that across the entire oceans, which causes more pollution than it would be just to have this stuff happen here. It's so asinine.
2026. When a company takes $1 billion loss just to leave, you know something is seriously broken.
Yeah.
This facility processes 145,000 barrels of oil per day, representing 8.6% of California's entire gasoline production. 400 workers have lost their jobs. 200 contractors are out of work. The city of Benicia loses 17% of its entire budget. And California drivers, they are about to get hammered with the worst gas prices in American history. University of California Davis economists calculate a 40 cents per gallon increase the moment Phillips 66 closes their Los Angeles refinery this December. Then another 81 cents when Valero shuts down 4 months later in April. That totals a $1.21 per gallon increase by August 2026.
How much was that?
December. Then another 81 cents when Valero shuts down 4 months later in April. That totals a $1.21 per gallon increase by August 2026. Your 15-gallon fill-up jumps from $70 to at least $95. The Stanford Energy Institute came up with even worse projections. They are showing potential spikes to $8 per gallon during supply disruptions. UC Berkeley's Severin Borenstein, who has been tracking California energy markets for decades, warns these closures could create severe gasoline shortages with unprecedented price increases. Here's the timeline that's about to wreck California's fuel supply. In December 2025, Phillips 66 in Wilmington closes. 139,000 barrels per day are lost. In April 2026, Valero in Benicia closes. 145,000 barrels per day are lost. In just 4 months, California loses 284,000 barrels of daily refining capacity, 17% of the state's total production. To understand the disaster unfolding, you need to know about CARBOB, California Reformulated Gasoline Blend Stock for Oxygenate Blending. This is not regular gasoline.
It's a special blend that we use in California, and that I believe nobody else can really produce this type of stuff, so we kind of restrict ourselves even further.
It is a specialized ultra-clean burning fuel mandated by California law. Refineries in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana do not make it.
Correct.
You cannot just truck in regular unleaded from Arizona and call it a day. Only a handful of refineries worldwide have the equipment to produce CARBOB. These facilities are in South Korea, India, and a couple in Singapore. That is basically your entire global supply chain for California-specific gasoline outside the state itself. When 17% of in-state production disappears, those Asian refineries become California's gas stations. The logistics are a nightmare. Tanker ships carrying gasoline take 30 to 40 days crossing the Pacific Ocean. The fuel you pump into your car in March was loaded onto a ship in January. Any disruption in that supply chain, whether a storm, equipment failure, or a spike in Asian demand, can leave California without gas. California Energy Commission data shows the state already hit record imports in May 2025, 210,000 barrels per day. That is before losing these two refineries. Stillwater Associates, an energy consulting firm, projects California will need to import 30% of all gasoline by late 2026. Nearly 1 out of every 3 gallons will come from overseas. For comparison, the rest of America imports less than 5% of finished gasoline. The infrastructure literally cannot handle this surge.
Nope.
Beniциa's port facilities take 4 to 5 days to unload a single 300,000 barrel tanker. That is only 60 to 75,000 barrels per day of unloading capacity, about half what the refinery currently produces. Converting the facility to a dedicated import terminal would require new pipelines, storage tanks, and harbor improvements, taking years to complete. Richmond's Kinder Morgan terminal could theoretically handle more imports, but it is already operating near capacity. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach have their own constraints. California would need to nearly double its import infrastructure in less than a year. That is physically impossible. Transport costs destroy any savings from cheaper Asian production. Industry data shows 13 to 15 cents per gallon just for shipping from Asia to California. Marine insurance for these tankers runs $20,000 per day. A single ship carries about $2 million worth of gasoline, making them high-value targets for any disruption. Then there is the storage problem. California maintains just 11 to 12 days of gasoline inventory. The state's 24 million barrels of storage capacity sounds impressive until you realize 3/4 is already committed to existing supply chains. When you depend on 40-day shipping times with 11 days of inventory, any disruption means immediate shortages.
Man, I mean, it's bad. And like I mentioned, is that if you have something that happens to one of those lines or shipping delays or whatever, you're kind of screwed. And something that I have to source out is I know that Nevada and Arizona purchase, I believe, oil and gas from California. Now, I might be wrong. I know they do some sort of shipment of oil or gas to Nevada and Arizona. So the issue is going to be is competition of purchasing this energy from these production outlets, sources, whatever you want to call them. And it could drive, prices to go up, supply and demand. This next year is going to be interesting. Next year is going to be very, very interesting. Well, we are going to raid somebody right now, and that always helps, promote the show, and it gets our show out there. I'm trying to see who is live right now, and that's, let's send. I'm going to send you over to Red Pill Project. We've actually never raided. This is a little bit of a smaller channel, smaller in air quotes. They have more than we do. But I always just want to say thank you to everybody that supports the show and makes it what it is. Always appreciate you. We'll be back here tomorrow for another episode of the Bald Brad Show, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we also have Dark Maga tomorrow as well. Always appreciate you guys. Head over, plug the show just a little bit, but also engage in the chat, guys. This helps us grow the show. It's like free advertising for us, but also it's a way for us to, give back a little bit to the community and get their numbers a little bit up so that they can have a little bit of fun and a little bit of excitement themselves. So with that being said, take care, Patriots. God bless.
Embarrassed or afraid to say that the Native Americans